And welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Beyond the Forecast. This week, we are going to be diving into everything kind of Earth-related. Tomorrow is Earth Day, so we're going to be going over climate, weather versus climate, climate change, carbon footprint, everything surrounding Earth Day. So this week, you're going to get the science and weather behind everything that is climate, climate change, carbon footprint, and Earth Day. Because, we got to take care of our Earth as well. So we are going to jump in today, start it all off, with climate versus weather. They are not the same thing. So you might think, well, climate is weather. Not really, no. Climate is very different from weather. Weather's the now. Climate is record. So meteorologist John Gross is going to break that all down for you today, climate versus weather. And then we're going to send it over to meteorologist Haley Fischetti, who's going to break down the Climate Prediction Center, the CPC, and show you exactly what tools we get from them to help us look long range and what it might look like for you a few weeks down the road. And that's how we see down the road. So she's going to dive into the CPC. And then we'll take you into a segment from our podcast, the Beyond the Forecast live podcast that we shot last week about spring, where we talked with you discussing our spring that we're seeing and that's coming up. But first, before we jump into all of that, let's go back to 1987, shall we? This day in weather history, April 21st, 1987, crazy warm weather took over for much of the United States, from the Gulf of Mexico up to the Great Lakes, all the way over the East Coast. That warm weather had 29 cities breaking their records for that specific date. Now, some of them saw ridiculously warm temperatures, others saw pretty warm temperatures for this time of year. 82 in Caribou, Maine, on April 21st, 1987, but 95 in Monroe, Louisiana. Now, it wasn't just in that little section. I mean, you go all the way over to Georgia, South Carolina, all the way up to the Great Lakes. There was a widespread heat wave for the end of April. So pretty crazy to think April 21st, 1987, we were seeing 80s and 90s for the majority of the eastern half of the United States. Pretty wild. All right, trivia time. Now, Friday, we asked you, what is a facility with instruments to measure various weather parameters? Is it a weather machine, a weather robot, weather station, or weather guide? Yeah, it's a weather station. We have weather stations all over, and that's how a lot of our information, such as current temperatures, winds, all of that is relayed to us and then to you. They come from weather stations, usually at the airports. And we do have weather stations that people do give us information from. You yourself could get a weather station and get all the information from your neck of the woods, your little space, your home, your acreage, whatever it is. You can see what it's like in your exact spot. The winds, barometric pressure, highs, lows, current temperatures, everything. It's pretty cool. Weather stations are pretty awesome, and they're actually pretty affordable nowadays. I remember as a kid, side tangent, as a kid, they were pretty expensive. Technology's come a long way in just a matter of 10 years, let alone 20, 30 years. So today, trivia, we are asking you, what is a high pressure system that traps hot air underneath it called? Is it a heat dome, hot spot, summertime, or heat wave? We'll have the answer for you tomorrow. QR code, hit that with your phone and it'll take you to where you can vote for your answer. But again, what is a high pressure system that traps hot air underneath it called? Is it a heat dome, hot spot, summertime, or heat wave? We'll have the answer for you tomorrow. Now, viewer photo of the day, brought to you, of course, by Great Rooms, is from Amanda Bazell in Onaway. She sent in this amazing picture of clouds, and she titled it, Awesome Sky in Onaway. So, Amanda, thank you so much for sending this in. Now, I'm going to do the old scientific thing for you. These are undulatus clouds. They are basically created by gravity waves in the atmosphere. It gives you that ripple effect. But essentially what's happening is as the moisture is moving up, those gravity waves impact it, and those ripples are different heights at which the water turns into or condenses into the cloud. So that is what you're seeing. They're called, I believe I am saying this right, undulatus. The cloud names are crazy, but I believe they're undulatus clouds. So thank you again, Amanda, for sending that picture in, and also thank you to Great Rooms for sponsoring viewer photo of the day. But coming up next, we're going to send it over to meteorologist John Gross, who's going to explain to you the difference between weather versus climate, because they are not the same. You might think that, but they're not. We'll have the answers and explanations right after the break.
Hey there everybody, meteorologist John Gross, and today we're going to be talking about what exactly is the difference between weather and climate. These are two definitions that can get mixed up all the time, so we're going to focus on the definition. We're also going to focus on different types of examples, and one main thing we'll also touch on right at the beginning is going to be whether you're talking about weather, whether you're talking about climate. One thing that drives them both is the data that we collect for both. A weather forecast, a climate outlook is only going to be as good as the data that we collect to put in our weather forecasting models, to put in our climate outlooks. That is key, and that is number one in how we start any weather forecast or any climate outlook. Here's a look at weather. Here's the definition. You're talking about a specific forecast that changes day to day. So this is something that we would air on our programming every single day. Today's forecast, tonight's forecast, tomorrow's forecast, Friday's forecast, the weekend forecast, ways we can describe that. You're talking about today, we're looking at sunny conditions. Tomorrow, we're looking at windy conditions. Tonight, we're talking about rainy and snowy conditions. Friday, we're talking about stormy conditions. This weekend, we're talking about sunny and windy conditions. So that's the main way we talk about weather, and that one, well, it's a little bit more self-explanatory. Let's dive into the climate side of things. This topic, it can be a little bit touchy. We'll just put it out there, but when you're talking about different types of climate, you have to look at first of where you're located on Earth, because Earth has different types of climates. You could be well north, near the North Pole, areas into the tundra. You could be talking about very cold conditions. You could be talking about very snowy conditions. As you're going farther south, areas near the equator, you could be talking about very warm conditions. You could be talking about more so in the way of tropical conditions. You have a lot of moisture to work with. Or, in this graphic behind me, you could be talking about areas in the desert that don't see a lot of rainfall. Very hot conditions, drought conditions. Those are ways to look at climate. So you're talking still about weather, but it's average weather conditions that we observe over a long period of time. Now, usually when you're talking about the 30-plus years, you're talking about averages. You're talking about records. You also can look at climatological things on a monthly basis, or even a few weeks out from where we currently reside. So you can look at temperature outlooks. You can look at precipitation outlooks from the Climate Prediction Center. Other things that you can look at how patterns in the Pacific Ocean are going to be setting up, potentially for the winter season. This is a huge topic we talk about. Either we're talking about an El Nino versus a La Nina pattern. Do we have warmer than average temperatures near the equator in the Pacific Ocean? Do we have colder than average temperatures near the equator in the Pacific Ocean? So those are main things that we talk about when you're describing climate. So here's an example. When you're talking about climate, let's go ahead and just focus on Michigan in the wintertime. And if you're trying to describe how the climate is as a whole in the state of Michigan during the winter season, you would say there typically is a lot of snow in the winter in the state of Michigan during the winter season. If you were looking more at the weather side of things, you would say Friday's forecast, tomorrow's forecast, we're expecting a half a foot of snow. So those are the differences between weather and climate. Now, I lead by example, or at least I learn by example, so I think this will be a little bit more helpful to kind of drive home some of those topics. Here's a look at weather. You're talking about the example for tonight. I grabbed this from yesterday's forecast. We were talking about temperatures, specifically low 20s to the low 30s, partly cloudy skies. Lake effect snow was starting to end. You were talking about windy or at least breezy conditions, northwest winds, 10 to 15 miles per hour, but gusts at times still could be near 35. A very specific forecast for a very specific time frame for tonight. Let's focus on another one. Here's a look at tomorrow. You're looking at a snapshot of when we show you our zone forecasts. Areas near the tip of the mitt, going into eastern upper. You're talking about upper 30s, low 40s, so we call that mild temperatures. So it's mild. You're talking about decreasing clouds. So we're transitioning more towards sunny, light conditions as we're getting into the day tomorrow. Winds from the northwest, 15 miles per hour, but gusts near 25. So windy conditions, sunny conditions, mild conditions. That's specifically the forecast as we get into the day tomorrow. So that's some weather examples. Here's a look at some climate examples. And this is taking a look at some data coming in from the Climate Prediction Center. I also pulled this from their website just the other day. So you're looking at precipitation. You're looking at temperature outlooks, 8 to 14 days out. But notice you're not given any specific numbers for temperature. You're not given any specific numbers for moisture. You're given above average, below average, near normal. So this is depicting that areas from the Great Lakes going into the southeast as we're getting into the first week of May, or at least close to it, rounding out April, we're going to be trending a little bit warmer. Areas throughout the plains, even going towards the Great Lakes, ending April, approaching May. We're expecting wetter than average conditions, but that's that collection of data that we have gotten over the decades. And this is how we can draw these different types of temperature outlooks or even precipitation outlooks. Now, another thing we can focus on is drought. So now you're talking about the seasonal drought outlook. So I pulled this from the Climate Prediction Center as well. You're talking about this being valid right here from the beginning of April going all the way out to the beginning of July. So depending on areas that are more susceptible to drought, are you talking about higher than average rainfall amounts? Are you seeing lower than average rainfall amounts? And we can depict based off of data over the decades if we're expecting drought to worsen, if we're expecting drought to improve, if we are expecting drought to get better. So that's another way that we can describe the climate. Here's one last example, and I think this one will drive home a little bit more because this one is focusing a little bit more on averages as well as records. And this is really where the longevity of collecting data comes into play. So this is an outlook, or at least the temperature climate report and the precipitation report from Traverse City. And this is taking a look again at the climate summary. So here's the look at those records. Climate reports. We go all the way back to 1991, but our climate record period, that goes back to the 1800s. So here's a look at your observed values, 47 and 35, but record values, 88 and 6 degrees. So you got to go all the way back to 2002 and 1904 to see when we had our coldest and our warmest day in Traverse City on this date, back in April 16th. So again, we're looking at data over the decades or even over a century, but it's that collection of data for a specific area over a very long period of time that gives us these records, that gives us these averages, that tells us, are we where we should be for this time of year? And as we continue to see that data and where it goes over the years, over the decades, that's how we can see, is the climate changing? Is it staying the same? What can we expect going into next year, going 10 years down the road, things of that nature. So that is the difference between weather and climate. I'm meteorologist John Gross reporting for Beyond the Forecast.
Thanks, John. Now, coming up next, meteorologist Haley Fischetti is going to break down the CPC for us, or the Climate Prediction Center, let you know what tools they have for us and how we give you long-term forecasts. We'll have that right after the break.
Welcome back to Beyond the Forecast. It's meteorologist Haley Fischetti. In honor of Earth Day and talking about climate science, today we're going to break down what Climate Prediction Center outlooks look like. You might see them time from time where we show them on air. Normally we show them what the temperatures outlooks look like, or even what rain we'll see in the future. And sometimes it can get confusing to viewers of what we're actually trying to talk about. So to break that down, what the CPC outlooks are, they're long-range climate forecasts. So the National Weather Service has a team of climatologists and meteorologists that work together and create a forecast for the long-ranged forecast. So we're talking months in advance, couple weeks in advance. Normally, me, Michael, and John, when we're working, we're worried about the right here, right now, and then the next 7 days. But their job over at the CPC is to worry about what's happening in the next couple of months. And that's where they use climate data from the past couple of years and even as far back as they can possibly go to research to make a good forecast to see what we could possibly see in the next couple of months, weeks, or even year. So that's really what it breaks down into. You normally get a sheet of weeks of what it looks like 8 to 14 days ahead, months, so seeing what the month outlook will look like, or even season, so the next 3 months, as normally we break down seasons by 3 months. It normally just provides a probability of what we can see. So there's that average, your baseline, you could say, of what we normally see year to year. And then they use colors and they use data to show what we could see above or below average. And it's best just to show you guys. So let's actually break down what the current CPC outlooks look like for northern Michigan. So here is the temperature outlook. This is good for April 26th to May 2nd. So this is what the long-range forecast will look like in the next 8 to 14 days. So not worried about now or next week. We're talking about in the distance. And you can see this orange and this reddish color. So that's showing that on the scale right here, it's actually going to be above average from what the normal is. Now, normal this time of year for northern Michigan is about the low to mid 50s. So we'll be above that in this forecast. You'll actually notice that sometimes in a couple of days it might change. It will fluctuate as they get more data in and they start to research more about the forecasts that they've seen in the past. So as of right now, we are looking at above average conditions. There's a high probability of that happening towards the end of April and the beginning of May. That's temperatures. Now let's see what precipitation look like. So we're looking at rain type, most likely going to be rain as we're expecting to see above average temperatures. So this is once again for April 26th to May 2nd. And this scale, you can see the red orange color is now below average for rainfall. So drier conditions opposed to the green, the darker the green, it's going to be more wet conditions. And we're at this pale green all across northern Michigan. So really all across Michigan, we can expect to see maybe just a little bit above average conditions heading into around 8 to 14 days from now, meaning a little bit more rain compared to what we normally see this time of year. And we use this data, especially as we head into the spring and summer months, to help see when we kind of break that winter cold. I know that's been a conversation the past couple of weeks of when we can get rid of that cold air and snow. And we use this data to understand when we finally could see warm air moving into our region. So don't be surprised when you start to see this more often in the next couple of weeks on our shows as we're waiting to see more of that warm air moving into the region. But that's what the CPC outlook looks like, and we'll have more details and more information over on Beyond the Forecast.
Thanks, Haley. Now, coming up next, we jump back into our podcast from last week about spring. We'll have that right after the break. And welcome back, everyone, to Beyond the Forecast. Now, meteorologist Haley Fischetti and myself, we sit down every Tuesday, 10 a.m. on the Beyond the Forecast Facebook page, the 910 News YouTube channel, my Facebook page, her Facebook page, the 910 Facebook page, and we have a live streaming podcast discussing a topic that you vote on or we have because we have these themed weeks for you. So last week was a free week, and we asked you what topic do you guys want to talk about, and you chose spring. So we sat down and we talked to you about the spring that we're currently seeing and what we'll see for the rest of spring. Check out a segment from the podcast right here.
So the lakes are going through just as much stress as everything else in Michigan.
Right.
And that's the next question is and I always bring people back to this because people always ask questions about what about this, what about that.
Mm-hmm.
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? The old physics saying, the old law, if you will. But
just calling it a saying is crazy.
Just an old law, physics law. With that being said, Mother Nature will always right the ship.
Yes.
If something's out of balance, Mother Nature will find a way to balance it back out.
It's like Star Wars. The
but
Force
you might
always
not
wins.
be happy.
So there you go. You can always head back to the Beyond the Forecast Facebook page or the 910 News YouTube channel to watch those back as they're on there forever now. Or if you just want to listen to it, we'll have them up wherever you check out your podcasts on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. They will soon be up there, and you'll be able to enjoy those in their entirety. So for meteorologist John Gross, meteorologist Haley Fischetti, I am Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens, and we thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us right here on Beyond the Forecast from 4:35, Monday through Friday. And so that means we will see you tomorrow right here at 4:30 to 5 o'clock to talk more about weather and science. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and be good, stay safe, take care. We'll catch you tomorrow.